Good evening, you through to the Gallant Few Rangers podcast. This is the weekly edition of the English Premier League. My name's Jamie. I'll be the host this evening. And as ever, we have a couple of guests to come along and just talk about the most recent round of fixtures. One face we've not seen in a few weeks, off living his life and starting the next chapter of his life. But Mason, how's things?
Yeah, all good, thanks, Jamie and Johnny. Good to be back. Good to be back on talking about football and not Rangers, mate, to be honest. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Good. And we've also got, as ever, Johnny. Johnny, I know it's obviously been a tough week for you, with Chelsea losing again, but, being knocked out, it's always a challenge for you, mate, but I'm glad to see you turned up. How's things?
Yeah, I'm okay, mate. I'm okay. Thanks for having me back on. Good to see Mason return. We can talk about Rangers if you want, mate.
Definitely not.
I don't know about you guys, but like it's international week already, and I'm like, this is day 2, and I'm already missing football. Like, I know the internationals are not everybody's cup of tea, but I just miss the day-to-day of football as opposed to an international weekend. But this is obviously the first one we've had in a while, and I know there's a few spicy games coming up, shall we say. I think notably England and Scotland get to play each other next week. I might watch it. I always put a flag up in my garden just to piss the neighbours off and get them start sparking. But apart from that, I'm already counting down the days to the next round of the EPL. I don't know about you, Mason. Do you take too much in the international fixtures, or do you just look forward to the next round?
Well, listen, the way my team's playing at the minute, I'm absolutely delighted there's an international break. But in terms of international football, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big England fan, like international football, or a big Scotland. I'll be honest, when England plays Scotland in a couple of weeks or next week, I'll probably sway to like seeing Scotland get a result. If I'm honest, just because living down here, it's very I'm half Scottish, but everyone calls you Scottish, so you think, why don't they go and get a result then?
Johnny, I think I know where your answer is going to go with this one. You love the international weekend, don't you?
Oh, it's your face when he said that, mate. I wish you guys could see this. That was beautiful. I'm the same as you, mate. Excuse me. I don't hate it. I love watching Scotland play, and I do like watching other international teams as well, just to see how players are getting on and stuff. But give me the option, I'm going to take club football every single time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think for me, I'm pretty patriotic when it comes to England, but only when they're in tournaments. The lead up to tournaments, I don't take solace of beating Malta 6-0 with 4 penalties being scored and calling it a successful day. It just doesn't tick my boxes for me. So, in tournament football, I'll get in the groove for, but in the lead ups to it, I just kind of buy into it. So, yep, I think we've got until the 16th, I think, until the next round of Premier League fixtures kick off. So, 10 days of torture. Excuse me, Mason. I'll kick off the first discussions with a team that is, I'm going to say, close to your heart. It's a bit of a tongue in cheek, but West Ham did the Friday night football against Luton, and obviously continued their great form to the start of the season. Did you get a chance to watch the West Ham? And I'm actually quite keen to hear your views of what you've been hearing a lot about West Ham, because I know you were quite vocal in what was being said here about potentially Moyes out. I'm guessing they're singing a different song now.
Do you know what? So I watched this. This was the game, the only game, I'll be honest, watched sort of 90 minutes. This was Friday night before I travelled up for the game on Sunday. But so I watched it Friday, and obviously, wife is mad. West Ham season tickets. All my friends, West Ham mad. They, even though they've picked up 10 points from the first 4 games, and obviously they're buzzing with that, there's still,
really?
There's still few of them saying, I still don't like the way we're playing. I still think we're too negative. And I just think that there's still some waiting for Moyes to slip up to a team where they should pick up 3 points. And I think they're going to jump on the bandwagon. I still feel that. But what I will say is, I think Moyes has signed really, really well. And I think you boys obviously will come on to that as well. I think the money, the brass money they've spent, I think they look better as a team, as a unit. especially off the ball. I've been really impressed with West Ham, and I do genuinely mean that when most of the West Ham fans obviously buzzing, they've started well, but there's still little digs at Moyes, and I do think that if they do it a bad spell, they will turn again.
Johnny, just on the West Ham, are they playing different to what they did last season, or have they got some kind of rejuvenation about them? The reason why I ask is that West Ham are pretty well known for being big at the back and scoring goals from the defenders, long balls up front, and play. They kind of still did that on Friday. I think 2 of the goals, but both of the West Ham goals were from headers, weren't they? Kurt Zouma and Jared Bowen. So has Moyes reinvented the wheel by buying a new midfield, or is he just getting a tune out of what he already had?
I would say they're very similar. I would agree with Mason 100% that with Rice moving on, yes, you lose your quality, and he's your captain, as your leader, and that's always going to take an adjustment. But they seem to have made that really fast. But we all questioned in the lead up to the season start, even when the season had started, that these lack of signings were going to create a lot of problems, which they would have. They've brought in real quality. This surprised me. It looked like the Ward-Prowse deal was off. Kudos, we've never seen that in a million years. Alvarez too looked like it was off, then it was back on. So I mean that's quality they've added, and it's all in the middle of the park. So that is making a difference. They do still score similar goals. They still play that similar style. A lot of the time they've been on the back foot, but they're catching teams, catching them out, whether it's for a dead ball or for the counter. Luton helped a bit at the weekend. I mean, the defending for both headers was terrible. It was really bad. They started okay, they were dogged, but West Ham's quality just took over, again, coming for the middle of the park. I kind of get what Mason's saying with the fans and how they're feeling about Moyes, because as football fans are the ficklest sport fans in the world.
Fickle as hell, aren't we?
Right? Yeah, absolutely. So see if your head's turned and you know that manager, you're like, look, I want that manager to move on. He's not for me. It's not working. And even if you see he strings 4, 5, 6 results together, that thought still sticks around. So when that one loss comes in, like Mason says, probably one that isn't unexpected, those 5, 6 wins are forgotten in a heartbeat. So can they continue the way they're going? Yeah, there's going to be hiccups. I honestly don't know if that consistency can stay, or at least to a certain degree. But they have looked better. For all the play similar, I think that wee bit extra quality has definitely made a difference.
Mason, West Ham's next 2 games on Man City and Liverpool, this is going to be a test, isn't it? Because 2 teams that are playing obviously just in similar form. But just on, can we make an argument for how well Luton did on the night? Because if I remember rightly, West Ham probably didn't score their second goal until just after the 80th minute, which meant Luton was still in that game for quite a big time.
They were still well in the game, and I think I agree with Johnny there. I think West Ham's quality was still telling, but they stayed in the game. They, as you said, as Johnny said, they was dogged, but they just lacked that quality in the final areas. I think that if you're going to play Luton, that's one game early on in the season, that's when I wouldn't want to play them, or maybe towards the end
at their ground as well.
At their ground, but I think there's going to be that. I think some teams are still going to go there and wipe the floor. I just think quality-wise, they're really, really lacking. But just quickly going back to West Ham, just last point I'll make on it. The problem I think that West Ham fans have got at the minute, I think they're signing Ajax's 2 best players, and they took James Ward-Prowse, and they're getting their big names that they're getting linked with window after window. I just don't think Moyes is sexy enough for where they want to. Rightly or wrongly, by the way, where West Ham fans want to go. And I think that's something that will stick around when they do, maybe it happens in the next 2 games. We'll wait and see. But I do think that's the issue that they've got. They're expecting their club to just go like that, when I think Moyes is perfect for them at the minute.
Saying that, I listened to an interview done by Karen Brady. It was at the end of last week, who was one of the chairwomen of West Ham, and she was quizzed on Moyes not being sexy enough, and obviously the decision to bring Moyes back. And she was very, very open about how the board felt they got it wrong, because they did let Moyes go. There was nothing wrong with his performances, apart from the fans actually didn't like this type of football, and they bowed to the fans, and they obviously they brought in other managers. I think it was 2 managers they brought in before bringing Moyes back. And I think she said because the question was put to her, how did you readdress that with Moyes and to come back to the table? And she said, basically, we just said we were wrong. We could see the progress he was making with the young team. You could see the progress in terms of the style of football. They were playing his football. It wasn't like he lost the dressing room. So actually, they got to account to what's West Ham's actually identity, and actually the fact they brought Moyes back in probably tells you what they feel their identity is. And I don't think they'll be as quick. But after listening to that, I don't think they'll be as quick to listen to the fans if, for example, they don't win the next 2 games and they want him out. I don't think they'll be as quick to pull that trigger, because they know full well what the other side of the grassland looks like. I think it'll be more to do with how he gets on with the Europe, as well as juggling the league, is probably where the challenge goes in. Johnny, you were going to say something, mate?
No, mate. I was scratching my nose. Please continue.
You're a nose. I thought he put his hand out, he was about to say something. But yeah, going back, I'm not convinced they will pull the trigger unless something shocking happens where, you get the likes of Jadon Sancho coming out and arguing about his manager. I don't see anybody at West Ham doing that anytime soon. So I do believe that they are playing for him. The only question I would have is, do they have enough goals in them as a striker? Because obviously they got the goals from Zuma and Jared Bowen. Jared Bowen obviously gets his goals, but Antonio played the full game, didn't really have a sniff at goal. Where's Kudus going to play? Is he going to play on the wing? Is he going to play up front? So, excuse me, I still do think there's a question about them. I'll bring it on to the next game, which was, quite easily one of the ones I wanted to watch, and it was the big 6-pointer that turned into a 1-pointer, and that was Sheffield United and Everton. That was the early kickoff on Saturday. I don't know about you guys, it was quite an entertaining game for all the wrong reasons. It had own goals, it had even McBurney kind of played a decent game, which I don't think I see too much of. It was great to see the young lad Caminacci get on the score sheet as well, score a cracking goal, but also good to see Everton get in the fight and actually do something with it. Mason, what was your thoughts on that game?
Well, I expected it to be exactly where it played out, really. Both teams desperate to win. To be honest, watching it back, I was quite impressed with Sheffield United, and especially you just said that, I thought McBurney was really good. I thought he had that's probably the first time I've watched him in a long time where I've said, oh, do you know what, he was quite a handful there. But watching it, I still expect, once Everton go 1-0 up, and then I still expect them to win, but they're just the same defensively. They're a shambles. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you're going to come onto it, so I won't ruin it, but I think the goalkeeper's one of my point.
Johnny and yourself, I know we were kind of tipping this game to be, when you're looking at the betting slips and you go, that's under 3.5 goals, and it fucking finishes 2 each, and you think, well, that's the bet ruined straight away off the bat. What was your thoughts going into that game? Did you expect it to be a goal fest, or?
No, mate. I think in predictions, I had a draw, possibly 1-1. I think I went. But it was a good game. It was certainly entertaining, and quite a few talking points in it. One thing I would highlight again, same as last week, Pickford, for all he has his faults, he was outstanding again. I kind of put him in 2 categories. You do get the shithouse side and does like a mistake, but then on the other side, the fearlessness of him, and also his shot stopping is top tier. You can hate them, you could dislike them, but if you're a football fan, you have to recognise it. And that again, that dragged them out. Now, the game probably could have flipped either way. He had some huge saves towards the back end. I thought the lad Beto looks probably ideal for Everton and Dyche. Big, strong,
rapid, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he's a bulldozer, and I think that's exactly what they look for. Calvert-Lewin's similar, maybe a wee bit more graceful when he's fit, but I think he's ideal for them. There was a few standouts. Patterson again had a good game. Delivery for I think it was 2-2 was ridiculous.
Danjuma's goal, I think,
pinpoint. Yeah, it was perfect balling. But I mean, there's another way to look at it, Jamie. You could say, with all due respect to Sheffield, they're a newly promoted team and they've been struggling since it started. They've hardly got going, and Everton are scraping a draw against them.
Yeah.
That kind of shows you where Everton are. You know what I mean? So we can say, yeah, they done well, they showed a bit of fight, but if I'm an Everton fan, I'd be saying I want 3 points for that game because we ain't going to get many from other teams. So yeah, good game. Enjoyed it. And last thing, Archer. Archer looks like he could be a signing. We talked about it when they were talking about the move. That could be a decent one. It was actually for fantasy football that the perspective came from, because he's cheap, and we thought that could be a decent addition. And he looked really, really good. So I think he could maybe give Sheffield a few points that they wouldn't have been getting elsewhere.
I think if any of you have not actually seen the replays of the Everton game, I'm not Pickford's fan in any aspect. But do yourselves a favour and watch that save that he makes in like the 90+ minute, because not only does he save 2 points for his team, but like it gets better with every view, every angle you see of it. Like you're watching it live and you think he's just saved it. It's only when they slow mo it and watch it from the back you actually see he does a double tip and then palms it away, and you're just like, shit, how was it not? That was actually fucking brilliant. And that's not giving him shit for the own goal that went in off his back, to make it 2-1. But
he stops them with everything, Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
He stops them with everything. He just throws anything in front of the ball. And that kind of shows you the level, I suppose, the love he has for Everton. So yeah, I would agree.
Okay, so that was, as I said, the 6 points that turned into a 1 point. It probably didn't do either team any good, but it was good for them to probably at least put a point on the board. I'm going to come into the Brentford game. Brentford played Bournemouth, and I'm only bringing that up because I don't think I covered them too much in the last episode, because obviously it was a bit of not a dead game, but there's not much happened. But again, it was another draw, finished 2-2. I'm kind of keen to get your thoughts on Brentford without Tony, because obviously it's a big gap for them. I know they've brought in the lad Kevin Shade, or Shada, I think they pronounce it, who seems energetic, but they're still playing with Visa up front. But it's the guy who is getting the headlines at the moment in Bueno. Mason, did you manage to see any of the replays of the Brentford game? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I'm just on Brentford. They I didn't realise this till after, but they've only lost 1 out of their last 18 at home, which to be fair, when you sort of look at that, you've got to give sort of Bournemouth credit for going there and getting a point. But Brentford, I've watched them. They're always capable of scoring goals. I think they get goals from everywhere. I haven't watched them this season and thought, no, Tony, they're going to struggle to score goals, as you just said there. And Bremo's come up again. I'm sure we will touch on fantasy football at the end, but he's someone that I've got in, and he's already nicked me quite a few points. But on the opposite side of that, for Bournemouth, it's to be 2-1 up that late in the game. It could have been a massive 3 points. That must have been a huge blow. And again, something else that I see today, it was only Man City and Brighton have scored more goals in 90+ minutes other than Brentford. So since the start of last season, and that's 13 goals. So they're a team that don't stop as well. But they'll probably feel like it's 2 points dropped if you look to that fixture before a ball's kicked.
Johnny, what's your thoughts on the Mbueno? And the reason why I'm highlighting it is, if anybody's not seen the replay, quite arguably touch. We give Jared Bowen the plaudits last week for that simple touch that he took on the run, and then scored the goal from it. And Bueno's is arguably a lot better, because what he does is he turns with the ball, catches it on the turn, and rifles it in the bottom corner. He saves obviously a point for his team, but bit of an unsung hero, isn't he?
He's been quality, mate. They needed someone to step up with Tony in his absence, and he's done that. There was always signs he could do it, to be fair. I mean, last season he didn't get all the as many chances as he probably would have liked, but when he did usually deliver. So I can't say I'm hugely shocked by it, but I would say pleasantly surprised. I thought Yeah, the touch, that was sublime. I used to do that myself in my youth. It's probably just as well he did, because prior to that he missed an absolute sitter.
Yeah.
Put it around the post, and he should have been scoring that. So I suppose that balances it. But yeah, I agree with Mason. They should have won that game. The chances were obscene. I think he said three times, and countless chances.
Should have been good 3 points for Bournemouth as well, shouldn't it? Really?
Yeah, I mean, the way the game was panning out, yeah, I suppose so. I mean, it was pretty grim for Rico Henry. I mean, I like that lad. He's a good player, tidy player.
Probably one of the worst pass backs of the season so far. Isn't it?
Just one of those shockers. Thing is, he must have ran about 100 yards to pull that ground back to make that challenge.
Just
And then does
play it
that.
back to him.
Yeah. So I felt a bit harsh. There's a few things that happened. I mean, Brentford must love Hawkeye. I mean, because if when that ball went over the line, the referee never seen that. And the linesman, if you watch the replay, the linesman didn't flag.
Yeah,
so
it was only when the linesman watch went off, wasn't it? That
I don't know. The watches weren't working. I think they had to get.
No, it was only so the ref's watch wasn't working, but all the other three people, all the other guys have got watches as well. So the two linesmen, theirs all went off. So what the ref had to do is he had to go and switches with the fourth official. So they were obviously working, but he wouldn't have flagged unless the linesman put his flag up to say my watch is going. But again, Hawkeye done them a favour there, didn't it?
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, like you say, I suppose either could have won it. I thought, in terms of chances and the way the game went, if I was Brentford, I would be less than happy with a point. But it's just the way it panned out.
Johnny, it brings us on to the next game. So obviously we talk about how well Spurs have been doing at the moment, and I think it's hard not to kind of go over the same ground. The big difference this week was that Son Heung-min managed to get himself a hat trick, but they're starting to look very fluent, aren't they, Tottenham?
I was ready to start singing "I'm Loving Big Ange" instead, and then I remembered when I No, listen. We said this pre-season that even in the absence of Kane, when we were talking about finishing for the season, I said I still think they'll improve greatly under Ange. I rate him highly as a coach. They're playing well. Would I put a hell of a lot of weight on that game? Probably not. I think Burnley have started very slowly. I thought there would be a lot more.
I don't think that game that they had with Luton was postponed. Remember, I don't think that did them any favours. It kind of gave them another 2-week gap, didn't it? Until they kicked the ball again.
Yeah. I just expected a wee bit more. Listen, it's still early doors, and there's plenty of time for them to pick up points. I mean, I know that, but they just, I don't know. They just seem to be always behind Spurs on Saturday. Yeah, they got a couple of goals, but I mean, especially for for 5-2, that was pretty much Spurs just taking their foot off the gas. I'm going to say he's got them playing well. Son does this, he'll go quiet for a few games and then he just explodes. There was no signs of that. I was actually looking at the stats today. The stats, underlying.
He's been really poor the last 12 months, isn't he?
And what they were expecting from him in that game. He's touches in the box, shots, all that kind of thing. And they were grim. But then he has the ability to do that. What does it say for the Richarlison? I mean, does that push him further down the pecking order? You have to think so.
I think he started the game on the bench as well, didn't he?
Yeah. I can't see him changing that anytime soon. Excuse me. I suppose one bonus was the lad for Burnley. How do you pronounce it? Koleosho? Is that right?
Say that again. What's his name?
Koleosho? Something like that.
Don't know. I'll let you carry on with that. They're going.
Koleosho. It was that. I'm going to stand by. He looked promising. He ran at them constantly, looked very, very confident, and I like to look at that lad. But yeah, they were making mistakes and they were given a hell of a lot of space. Like, for example, in Maddison. You cannot let Maddison cut in on his inside onto the right. If you do that, you're going to get punished. They've done it about 3 times. Keeper made 2 saves. Third time, he couldn't do it. So, yeah, I mean, that's things they have to rectify and do it fast. But, I mean, Company seems a good coach. I mean, so I suppose they've got every chance.
Mason, and you know, Spurs last season was saying that they won the transfer window, whatever that means. This season, they've kind of got a better argument to say to that. And what I mean is bringing Madison in. I'm not going to say I'm surprised nobody else attempted to bring him in because I have my own thoughts on that. But how pivotal has Madison been, and how will he be to their season?
Well, when we're seeing the sort of money that's getting thrown around for English players, Jamie, I think that Madison for the fee, I think it's a great buy for Spurs. I think he looks super sharp. I think that's one thing you noticed about
Looks
Madison.
like he's enjoying his football, doesn't
he? He really does in that position. And I think that Postecoglou for him is perfect in that hole. And he's got what you see with Spurs, sort of the thing I've noticed, sort of watching the highlights is runners off the ball all the time, and it just creates space for him. And Son, I think Son as well, and Ange, I think that's a match made in heaven. Them two, I think that he'll get back to his best. I think obviously staying fit and the amount of games, I totally understand that, but I don't see Richarlison getting it. And someone that we haven't really spoke about, and my mates as well, my Spurs mates haven't really spoken about is Solomon. I think that's such a good signing as well. And I know Brendan Johnson, that people will talk about him, and he's got a lot to prove for me. But I think Solomon's such a good signing again for the money. So going forward, they're going to do really well. Where I still think the concerns are, they've gone to Burnley and scored 5, but they've still conceded 2 goals. And I think that will happen against the better sides. I still think defensively he's got a lot of work to do. But listen, by the sounds of it, they're absolutely buzzing, even with them going out in the cup. Midweek they went a goal behind and they went and scored 5 goals. So I think they've got a lot to be optimistic about. So good start for Spurs. I think that was the first time they've won 3 games in a row for like
at the beginning of the season or something.
So they could be a little surprise package where I think a lot of people would have written them off without knowing about their manager and etc.
I think, obviously the Postecoglou, he kind of likes that maverick player, doesn't he? And I think he's got 2 of them in Son and Madison. What the difference Son is this season, he's actually going to be playing as a striker as opposed to off Kane, which is going to be a big difference for him. Like you, I was more impressed with Solomon actually, because he assisted 2 of the goals. Nobody spoke about Solomon. They all spoke about Madison. They all spoke about Son's hat trick, but actually Solomon was a bit of an unsung hero. And Johnny, I'll tell you, like, we've done a lot of the Champions League prediction games and the fantasy football and all that kind of stuff. Solomon's been around for years from a Champions League perspective. He comes with a bags of experience, and we've seen that last season. You remember when Mitrovic first went out? He played for Fulham, and I think he came off the bench and scored something like 3 goals to get them 3 points each game. He's got bags of experience. I'd be surprised if they go back to a Richarlison style, considering that they've got those options available to them. Johnny, what do you make of the new central defender that they've got in, the Van de Ven? The reason why I say is that, there's been a lot of talk about their central defenders. I think you've got Davinson Sanchez that's getting punted about the whole of Saudi Arabia at the moment to try and get him off the books. You've got Eric Dyer, who apparently was offered a move elsewhere and he's rejected it because he's not getting the right money from the club in terms of a severance package, which left him with Romero and Van de Ven. Has he been that good in terms of the points that they've got, or is he still finding his feet?
I think it's a big change for the lad. I mean, he's young. I think he's early 20s. And he's came from, was it Wolfsburg, I believe?
Wolfsburg, yeah.
Yeah, who weren't exactly flying. So it's quite a transition. But, I mean, they've obviously spotted something. And they have looked definitely shored it up a wee bit. They're still conceding, but I don't know, I think they've had 2 clean sheets. I don't remember exactly offhand. I think it's 2.
Well, they got one against Man U, didn't they? Which was obviously the bigger one.
Yeah. And the Bournemouth. But I mean, yeah, if it's working, then may as well go for it. Yeah. The Dyer one was a bit strange because it kind of felt like that was happening. I think Fulham was actually the first reported team, and then it wasn't. But is what you're saying is I wasn't aware of that. If the players knocked it back, I've never really rated Eric Dyer. Personally, I think he's overrated. I think he struggles a wee bit. Maybe a move for him would have been ideal, but it's not to be. But yeah, on Van de Ven, I think it could be a good signing, mate. And like we say, he's young. There's still a lot of moulding to be done there. I think he's under a good manager too, who will bring him through the proper way. So, I mean, it's working. It's hard to judge against.
Mason, just one last touch on Tottenham. They've got this young attacking left back that's just kind of come out of nowhere, and Udogie. That literally nobody said anything about it. Me and Johnny were talking pre-season, and I'd called his name out because he'd started all the games and he'd kind of got assists and he was getting involved in attacking. This guy's absolutely just come out of nowhere and he's kind of smashing it right now, isn't he?
Definitely, he looks. A lot of Tottenham fans saying he's like, you're saying he's like a new signing, but I think fullbacks, as we've seen with Postecoglou, the way he plays with the fullback. I think Porro's another one who,
Pedro Porro,
split a lot of opinions sort of last season, but I think the way that he plays and what I've seen, the young energy, I think that they'll be perfect for him. And as I said, I was looking at that left back area. I'm not a big fan of Ryan Sessegnon. I don't think he's kicked on at all. Since he got the move to Spurs. So listen, they without being in Europe as well, they could be one that if they do continue to score goals and keep players fit, why not for the top four?
No, totally agree. And speaking of top four, Chelsea don't look as though they're going to get it. So I'll bring us on to Chelsea versus Nottingham Forest. Mason, starting with you, that was obviously shock of the weekend, but a lot's been made. Obviously, Forest are not getting the credit where it's due.
Yeah.
But the biggest shocking statistic I seen was that they only had one shot on target out of 27 attempts. Chelsea at home against Nottingham Forest, who snatched it in the dying embers. That's pretty bad, isn't it, considering the money that's been spent in there?
Yeah, shocking, Jamie. I watched Chelsea first game of the season against Liverpool, and I did see bits, and I thought, bits of play, and I thought, right, I think, as everyone expects, I think Chelsea will be a lot better this season. And then since then, I thought the West Ham game they dominated, but again, just blunt up front, not ruthless enough. I thought they were poor against Luton. Again, I know they won the game 3-0, and Luton were, no disrespect, were poor. But that game again Saturday, for the money they spent on that team and the midfield, and I know it's going to take time, I get that, but they're so sloppy in possession. And they get in the final third and it's like, right, where are we going now? And as the longer the game went on, you could just see Forest growing and growing. They thought, we get a chance here. And to be fair, it's a great ball and a really good finish. And once it won 1-0, Jamie, I said, that's it, done. Chelsea won't score. And that's how it panned out. Yeah, not been impressed with Chelsea bar 45 minutes against Liverpool. I think that just their whole transfer policy and the way that they've done business, the way they're looking, it's just a mess. It's just a mess. It's gonna take him a lot to clear that out and get him in a positive direction, because I don't like what I'm seeing at all.
Johnny, it'd be easy to sit here and obviously pile in on Chelsea, but I'll ask you a different question. Does it trouble you seeing Enzo Fernandez being looked at to be the playmaker? And what I mean by that is, if you look at the replays from that game, it was Enzo Fernandez that was kind of making the charging runs into the box. See, when you've got people like Sterling, Jackson, and I think the young lad Palmer came on who looked a bit more energetic, but again, it was still Enzo Fernandez, and he missed that big chance at the end, didn't he? Like, he never struck me as an attacking midfielder when they brought him in. Does that show you the dysfunction through the team, or is this just Chelsea square pegs and round holes?
You just shot on the point I was going to make. Are you happy with yourself? You've just basically rattled off what I was going to tell you.
You've been sitting there since 1 o'clock putting those notes together.
Oh dear. I wrote down the same thing, mate. Listen, it comes down to one thing, and I've watched this pre-season and start of this season. Now, don't listen. I'm not making any excuses because they're dog meat. Right? They're just a mess. Everything's scattergun. Everything's panicked. Everything's just throwing off money and hope something magic's going to happen. And with the way Poch talks, is what he his weight on what comes in is minimal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look. We'll take Saturday's lineup for example. Go
Who
across
would
the
you,
middle
who
of
would
the
you who
park.
would you say that who from the players they brought in? Who do you think are Poch's signings? I think Palmer's a sort of Poch signing.
I don't honestly, mate. I don't know. And they're such a hard club to read now because they have so many of these roles, all these cooks, and they're all trying to make a la carte menus, and they're just serving up dog shit on toast. Um, that's where pretty much my views on it at the minute, mate. You've got Casiado in the middle of the park, who's never started. They gifted another goal at the weekend. Gallagher, middle of the park. Right, on both sides of them, you've got Chilwell and Gusto, and then you've got Sterling and Bruno. There's not a creative player there. I don't see Sterling as a creative midfielder. He wants to be up front.
He wants to be on the run, doesn't
He
he?
doesn't do much tracking. He's always pushing up, and he's a greedy player. I'm not saying he's not effective. He was effective against Luton, but that's Luton. He wasn't effective at the weekend. He was a ghost. So, like you, it looks like it's fallen to Enzo. Now, Enzo has probably been the only one I would give pass marks to this season, to be fair to him. He doesn't put many passes wrong. He does a hell of a lot of work, covers a lot of grass. But to me, he's an engine man. You know, he's another Gallagher, maybe a wee bit more flair, but he's not a playmaker. I don't see that cutting dead eye pass. Don't think he has that. Still young, he's still very young. Could that be molded? Yes, but it's not really a time to do that. They do have a horrible list of injuries. So many new players have been wiped out with injury. Who would have been starting? Excuse me. It's quite a long list, but that's not an excuse for the squad they have whatsoever. So yeah, mate, they were garbage. Forest deserved 3 points. They were the much better side. The lad Jackson, honest, he kind of looks like a Canadian moose on roller skates. That's the only way I can describe him.
Canadian moose on roller skates.
He's just legs everywhere. His touch is honking. You seen him at the week that miss at the weekend. I could have buried that. Sitting in the wheelchair, I could have stuck that one in. That was awful. And he had a few like that, and
he's had a few like that every game, hasn't he?
Well, he was like that first half against Luton for 45 minutes. We were chatting about it. I mean, he was terrible. He was really
bundled his goal in, didn't he?
I thought they would hook him, but he looked much better in the second half. But there was none of that on show at the weekend. So I think Poch has got a huge job in his hand, but he knew that. Yeah, they have a lot of injuries, but he should have more than enough weight in that squad to go and beat teams like Forest, especially at home. So, yeah, I'm kind of just a bit exasperated with him at the minute, to be honest with you, mate.
And Mason, it wouldn't be fair to not have a little chat about Forest. The most crazy stat I've seen was actually that was Forest's second away win since they were promoted. Just to put in context how big those 3 points were for them, they only got 3 points away from Hull in the whole of last season, and they've already got that away to Stamford Bridge. That was massive for them.
Incredible, because as said, we said many a times last season about their home form and how important that was. Just to go to Stamford Bridge again with the amount of, getting towards the end of the window, and I said, Forest haven't signed that many players. Then look Saturday morning, I'm like, they signed about 6 players. But the one, it's a great win for him. But the one that I still can't believe, obviously seeing him in 2 legs against us, Sangare, how they managed to get him.
Well, 30-odd million, I think. That was snuck in the last day of the window, wasn't it? I think it's a brilliant signing.
And listen, I don't want to be disrespectful towards Nottingham Forest and what type of club they are, but I'm just shocked that they managed to. He went there for one, because I thought there's better clubs in the Premier League that he could have gone to, and I think they've signed well. I think they've signed. Looking at it on paper, I think they've signed better this season than they did last season.
I said actually there was a player that they've picked up on loan this season who didn't get a fair crack of it when he was there, is the boy Tavares, Nuno Tavares, the left back. At Arsenal, he didn't get a fair crack. He went over to, I think it was Marseille, and he scored something like in his first 5 games or something as a left winger, because he's so attacking. Now, if you look at Forest's wingers, Serge Aurier, not known for his tackling, always known for his forward running. now you've got Tavares on the other side. That's going to shake some teams up, especially when you've got people like Alanga and stuff running off them. And I'm not saying Alanga's going to be the big old O'Neill, but the pace that him and a 1 year is showing right now, I think it was Johnny and Colin that called out the Alanga transfer and saying that might be a great bit of business. So I'll give the kudos to the two of them. But like I think I agree with you. They've made some cracking signings.
No, didn't give him the kudos. He slated it. I called that one.
So,
he's not getting that. Go back and listen to it. I think it's what he used was Honkin or Boggin, one of the two. The Tavares deal, yeah, that is a good signing. Good player for Marseille last season. Another start I seen at the weekend. I don't know if you just said that, mate. Kind of head zoning out a wee bit. They scored in the last 11 Premier League games on the trot, which is quite an impressive start. You know what I mean? So they are dangerous, and they are adding attacking threat. So they are going to cause problems, and they have been. But yeah,
I think it won up until the weekend. I think he'd scored in 6 games in a row as well, which is, any top 6 team you would be shouting at the rooftops about how well the striker's playing. Yeah, the Bladder one, he was doing exactly that. So no, I totally agree with you.
Fancy these chances against shitey Chelsea as well.
Okay, we'll move on from the shit kicking Johnny's getting about his Chelsea, and we'll move on to the top of the table, which is Haaland FC, aka Manchester City. Excuse me, I don't want to spend too much time talking about how dodgy that offside goal was with Akanji putting off the keeper, because I challenge anybody that says that that's not offside and impacting the goalkeeper. What I want to do was more probably talk about, I don't think it would have changed the final result. It looked like a 5-1 all day long, Mason, didn't it? That was a cracking game for them.
Yeah, I think they missed, again, a lot of chances as well. But City at home, they've just become a machine. It just, even that 1-1, and you're looking at it and you just think that I'm sure it's 35 wins from 37 in the last at home. In the last 37. I'm sure it's 37.
Is that all competitions, probably?
All competitions, yeah. Which is just, and it's just the amount of chances they create. I think Alvarez is coming onto a game now as well. But when you've got someone like Haaland, and again, I know he gets a penalty, but it's just, you just every time you sort of watch him, you're just saying the same thing. I think City, obviously they've lost a few, but I think signing of Kovacic as well is so underrated. When I was, sorry to go back to Chelsea.
No, you called it. You did call it out to say that was going to be a good signing for him, because of what none of us probably took into context is that it's actually freed Rodri up. As in, he's not setting as deep as what he has done, and Rodri's kind of like a force when he's in that box, and he's like 6'3", absolute tank. Nobody's going up for a challenge with him.
Absolutely, that's exactly it. And it's just reminded me when I first watched Kovacic at Chelsea driving with the ball, and he had that sort of license to go and do that. And sometimes he glides with the ball, takes 3-4 players out of the game, and bring it into this Man City team. I think it's brilliant. And there's a couple of other teams I want to come to. I don't want to spoil it, but again, early on, you're just looking at Man City and you're just saying, who stops them?
Mm-hmm. Johnny, just on obviously the enigma that is Haaland, and I know you'll have a stat, so I brought you a stat from last season. Haaland's first 4 games, he scores 2 in his first, he blanks in his second, he scores 1 in his third, and he scores a hat-trick in his fourth. He's done exactly the same again this season. Like, the guy's an absolute machine, isn't he?
Yeah. We fluff him on this show every week because he earns it. Just even that he's been quiet the last 2 games.
You say that, but he still scored a goal, isn't he?
Yeah, but I'm talking about
he scored his last game.
The amount of chances. I mean, he's spurred a lot in penalties as well. But the key point in that is he's still in those chances. Mm-hmm. He's not going to keep missing them. It's going to come back to fruition for him, which it happened. And I agree with you. That was a 5-1 before that game kicked off, and I say that with respect. It's just it's a mismatch. Unless the stars align, City are going to do damage. I know you didn't want to talk about the VAR call, but I do. It's just horrendous, man. It annoys me. It's bogging. What is the point? What is the point of it? If the whole point, mate, is ref doesn't see it, ref makes a bad call, instead of VAR to say you made a boo-boo there, that's VAR's purpose, right? And the VAR has the grace taking a few minutes, watching 55 replays for every angle. Most of them we can't see, drawing up lines and bringing up all these different, reasons for it not to stand, and still come to the wrong decision. I can't get my head around it. Like, there's some that you could say, yeah, it's contentious. I can see either way. There is no either way with that decision. So yeah, that annoyed me. Not that it would have made the slightest bit of difference. It wouldn't. Of course it wouldn't. But it's still, that could happen in a far more, a lot more on the line.
Yeah, I'd probably give it more airtime if it was impacting the result, if you like. If it was, one each and it was a last minute and it was ruled out, or it was, given. As you said, this was a 5-1 before it even kicked off. I think we knew it was going to go. These decisions are going to happen, and we kind of know that. And there's a lot of talk about VAR at the moment. Even Sky did a piece yesterday on it. So
there's one
it's
every
happening
week.
quite a lot. Yeah.
And,
yeah,
and they're not, they're bad. It's not like what I would class as a 50-50 or close. There's been some horrendous calls.
Well, I think if you remember the opening line was VAR was there to assist the referee in clear and obvious errors. I'm not seeing that now. I'm seeing checks done for everything now, for every offside, every goal, every card, every contentious decision. Those aren't clear and obvious decisions. They are re-reffing the game, in my opinion. But as I said, we could sit here and talk about a whole new pod on that.
Exactly what you just said, re-reffing the game. We've seen a few like that, and I agree with you. I think when it does that, then it's going against the whole purpose of having it there, and you just take everything away for the referee on the pitch.
Yeah. And Mason, I'll give you a shout. I believe that was the same at Sunday as well for you guys. So I do believe that was a complete re-reference of the incident. That was
going through my head the whole time.
100%. Apologies, but that. See, Johnny, I told you not to do that. But again, as I said, the Holland's the enigma. There was another hat trick on the day, Mason, for one Evan Ferguson, and we all called it at the beginning of the week that one of the games that we were going to look forward to watching was actually the Brighton and Newcastle game. I'll put this question. I think it's an easy question to say how good were Brighton. I'll change the question. How disappointing has Newcastle been, considering if you look at the start to the season, or am I fishing? And what I mean by that is I think they've had one win in 4 games. They've lost 3 on the bounce. They had a good win against Villa, but they've lost the 3 games since, and obviously I include Liverpool in that. Am I reading too much into that, or are we Brighton just that good?
Well, I'll tip Newcastle to go and continue to do what they do, and for 85 minutes against Liverpool, winning that I thought that they're looking very good. But I was really disappointed with them Saturday. To be honest, mate. I don't want to take nothing away from Brighton. But if you're just looking at Newcastle, I thought they were flat. Didn't really get Isaac in the game. To be honest, I thought Brighton's midfield, I thought Billy Gilmore was brilliant.
Probably the best game I've seen him play for Brighton, definitely.
He's playing really, really well. But for Newcastle, I would be. If I was a Newcastle fan, I would worry a little bit, because that's, as you said, three defeats in a row and a performance that sort of flat, and not something that we said really about Eddie Howe's Newcastle. I thought they were poor. But again, Brighton and Ferguson, he's going to be one that in January or in the summer that someone else is going to, one of the big boys is going to try and snap him up at his age.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. I think he's got more gears to go as well. I think you can see certain things he does. He's still going to learn, but he's quite quick, strong. I think he's still 19. So no, he's not even 19 yet. He's still 18. Sorry. So he's definitely going to be one that the big clubs look at. But personally, sort of watching it with Billy Gilmore was the one that as you said, for a long time watching Brighton, I was really, really impressed with him.
Good. Johnny, on I know obviously you're a big fan of Brighton, but what's your thoughts on Harvey Barnes' life at Starts at Newcastle at the moment? Is he being underplayed? I kind of expected him to walk into that team, and he's only coming on as cameo appearances now, into like 10 minutes at the end of each game so far.
I suppose so. He's using a lot of the same players, with the exception of Tonali. I think it's pretty much a carbon copy of what he would have used last season. Maybe not so much Gordon because he's only started featuring this season, but it's a very, very similar side. And I suppose there's a wee bit loyalty to that side, and if it ain't broke kind of thing. I think he'll get used more, mate. As you seem to take a great delight in pointing out how bad Newcastle are. Newcastle listeners, give them pelters. No, I'm only kidding, mate. I think as well, I think their depth is weak. I know they've added players, and they have, but it was the same against Liverpool. I'm still convinced Eddie Howe chucked that game for Newcastle.
When he took
not
intentionally,
intentionally, but he changed the game at key moments and brought on players way subpar compared to what was on the pitch, and Liverpool just exploited it. At the weekend there, the players coming off the bench, we started Matt Targett, which was a strange one. It's another one who I wouldn't put anywhere near the grade Champions League or anything like that. With respect, I just don't see him at that level. And he's going up against like Solly March. Solly March is a quality player, and he's going to exploit that, and he did. And also they've got that much pace, and they're that fast on the ball and moving the ball Brighton. I just think players like that struggle a bit. Sorry. I mean, Dan Burn was all over the place at the weekend. And again, off the bench, you've got like Longstaff, and they brought a young lad, Anderson, on. So it's not really depth, and it's not the highest of quality coming off the bench to change a game. Yes, you've got Barnes and you've got Wilson, but I'm not hugely convinced by that, mate. And we've not really got the European excuse at the minute because the games are still pretty thin. So it's only going to get worse, and they're going to have to use those players more. So maybe the call for Newcastle we're going to struggle a bit is right. I didn't foresee it. I thought they'd have a harder season, but I thought they'd still do okay. But they have started slowly.
Especially with the group. Sorry, especially with the group they got as well in the Champions League. That is going to do nothing.
Group of death.
Because they're going in there and they're getting beat again. It's just going to roll on to the weekend. So. I still think they've got some good players there, but I think Johnny's spot on. They need to be playing on the front foot. The Newcastle we see towards the end of last season, and it's not been like that last couple of games.
And one final bit on Brighton, I think they've been one of the most exciting teams to watch so far this season. The thought of dropping Ansu Fati into that attacking option, just actually they're up against Man U, they're away to Old Trafford in the next game. That would be a great test, wouldn't it? Amazing to see how they get on against Man United at the moment, who seem to be not all over the place, but I've got defensive issues.
Brighton will go there and score. I've got no doubt about that. They'll go there and score. So listen, you're asking me now on a Wednesday, 10 days before that game. I wouldn't write Brighton going their result because we're going to touch on Man United, but not been impressed with them, especially defensively. So. That'll be an interesting one.
And the next team I'll bring us on to, obviously, we're looking further down now. So we've got the Wolves game. So remind me, who did Wolves play again? They played Palace, and they lost. Am I right in thinking they went ahead in that game 1-0, and ended up losing the game 3-2? I think there was 2 late goals from Edouard and Eze, I think it was, that kind of got them back in front. Are we expecting too much from Wolves going away to Palace? I know a few you guys tipped them to be struggling at the end of the season. I think I had them in my bottom 3. Gary O'Neill seemed to be getting something right, but all of a sudden it's kind of like they put one step forward and they take one step back, didn't it, with Wolves, John?
Yeah, I think they're in for a long season, mate. I stand by that. They've just sold a lad to City.
Matches Nunes.
Yeah. So he obviously has some weight. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't really stop questioning Pep's transfer, so there must be something there. So it has to be a loss. I can't say I've seen it, but I appreciate his eye for a player. And they've lost. I've had a mind blank. Ruben Neves. Sorry, that's what I'm looking for. To Saudi. That was a big loss. I don't see a particularly strong squad there. I didn't see the full game at the weekend. I only seen the highlights of that one. But I mean, Palace are a pretty good side. They're fairly good at what they do. Somehow Ayew still seems to perform. It feels like that boy's been a bit forever. Honest,
It's like 47 or something.
It feels like he's been in the game for so long. But I mean, he was cracking. And the lad Eze, obviously, is probably the standout. And the old haunting for Steady Eddie. Edward up front got his couple. I mean, granted, he's not really prolific, but I just think they're going to be up against it pretty much the majority of games. There was a sign early on that they might have been getting a wee bit more, maybe judging them a wee bit too quickly, but it seems they've pretty much went into that to what was expected, So, can he get it right? Yeah, there's loads of time, but I do think he's got a massive uphill struggle. I don't know what the fixtures are like. The immediate fixtures, sorry, I don't have them in front of me.
So the next fixtures away to they've got Liverpool on the early kickoff at 12:30. The Liverpool are away, and then they're away to Luton and at home to City. So you've got Liverpool, Luton, City, and the next 3 games for Wolves.
That's tough.
Yeah,
that is tough. So it's going to be a really tough start, and I mean, it's hard to judge the manager because the club just seems to be a wee bit at 6s and 7s at the minute.
Well, they just lost another player yesterday, didn't they? They got the attacking player Daniel Pedence went back to Olympiacos.
I was
so
watching
again, that's another striker for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was watching the rumblings on that and reading a few things, and a lot of them touted him as their best player. But what was reported was his attitude was honking. I don't know if there's any salt to that, but that was what came out of it. But again, it's another loss. You're right. So I don't really know what they do. I think the only way I can describe it for a long season, it's a long time to another transfer window. He's got a long way to try and navigate that, and it kind of feels like a sinking ship, even though we're only 4 games in.
Mason, just on Crystal Palace. So obviously, I think pretty much anybody and everybody knew that once Zaha was leaving, it was going to become the Eze show. But there's a lot of talk that clubs are now looking at potentially bringing in Eze in the summer. It's kind of double jeopardy, isn't it? Because they need Eze to perform to get the points, but in doing so, creates a bigger target on the back to get Eze out of the club. I think I read a report today that Man United have apparently put together a war chest of 75 million that they're about to tempt Palace with, not bearing in mind that it was the same news day that they reported 500 million losses for share prices. So I don't know really if I read too much into that truth, but these are the kind of headlines that Palace don't want.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Eze. I think he's. I think he's
called up the England squad as well, isn't he? Sorry, I think he's been called up to the England squad.
He's got a long. I still think he's got a long way to go in terms of playing for one of them. Still times I watch him and you want more, but I think he's. You can tell. I think Hodson's been massive for Eze because his performances have gone up levels for him, and sort of looking at that game Sunday. I think Edward's another one. He started the season really well. I know a lot of Palace fans had doubts sort of towards before Hodgson come in, they were saying he's not good enough, and he started well. But always a tough place when you go to Selhurst Park, isn't it? And just again, I just still can't believe Hodgson at his age is still managing, but he's managing and getting them results, and you've got no doubt that they won't. I don't think they'll be in a relegation battle. I think they'll be absolutely fine mid-table, and it's just a club like Palace. It's going to be inevitable that Eze does move on. Elise's another one as well. I think he could be going as well, sort of come January or the summer. But that's what Palace have. What they've done well is they've gone and recruited really well.
Okay. Johnny, I'm coming to you because I don't want to turn this into the Liverpool podcast, as some do report, but I know you've got an absolute rager for the boy Szoboszlai at the moment, who was absolutely outstanding for yet again in the humbling of Aston Villa 3-0. What was your thoughts on that game, and what were the best takeouts for you?
I enjoyed the game, mate. I really like that lad. Watched a fair bit of him before he moved. Called it was going to be a good sign, and actually called it as a sign of the season, which was kind of
Mm-hmm.
big. But so far, so good. Just a quality player, mate. And I think the team he's playing in, especially in that midfield, kind of complement him.
Mm-hmm.
Allow him to play and he gets a hell of a lot of freedom with Liverpool, and he's always going to get that because of the way they're set up. Big question mark over Villa.
Yeah.
So one side to the other.
So I think they've won 2 games. They beat Burnley, they beat Everton, but they were destroyed on the opening day of the season against Newcastle, and they didn't look in the game at all against Liverpool. 2 games that you expected them to be more competitive in, should I say?
I thought there would be goals, both ends flying in. A couple of goals in each. A couple of goals each at least. I thought it would be mental.
In the Liverpool Aston Villa game, you mean?
Yeah. I think I was more shocked that Liverpool kept a clean sheet. Respectfully.
Yeah.
But no, they just looked. I don't know. I can't really say it was European because we knew who they were playing, so we can't use that. It was just they were outclassed. That's the only really way to see it. And they are a good side, mate. They have some quality players and they tick really well. But on Saturday they just weren't at it. Is that down to Villa or down to Liverpool? Probably a bit of both. For me, when you play Liverpool, you need a good start. If they get a foothold and they start coming at you in those waves, I think it's going to be tough for most teams, at least not to concede. But yeah, I mean, it's a good result for Liverpool at the end of the day, and the boy Slobozai just keeps looking better each game I see him. So hopefully we'll see him improve because it's good for football fans to watch him.
Yeah, Mason, I'm coming at you with a stat. So Liverpool are running the longest unbeaten record in the league if you go last season into this season at the moment with 18 games. Nobody's talking about them though in terms of where they're sitting, and what I mean by that is we've already bigged up how well Tottenham are doing, how well I'd say West Ham, in terms of how many points they've got from the opening fixtures. See if you would have said to me at the beginning of the season that you're going to get a point against Chelsea, you're going to get 3 against Bournemouth, you're going to get 3 against Newcastle away from home, and you're going to beat Villa comfortably 3-0 at home, I would have bet your hand off for that.
Listen, to the words out of my mouth, I think they're quietly going about their business, but I think they've got levels to go as well. Mm-hmm. I honestly think they haven't got started, especially going forward. I think, as you said, I was like, McAllister settles in. I think Nunes as well I think a lot of people forget how young he is and how raw he is, and I think he'll be another one. I think going forward, Liverpool can jump up levels. The big question mark I've still got at Liverpool, as Johnny said, there is, and I'm sure you've got it as well, is defensively. In the games that are, I think Villa are a very good side, but I still expect Liverpool to beat them at Anfield. So it'd be interesting.
I would say one of the better players on Saturday that never got any credit was actually Joe Gomez. Like, he kept Watkins out the game completely, and the boy Diaby, for all intents and purposes, Diaby's been brilliant since he joined. And I think Gomez was outstanding at the weekend.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Joe Gomez. I don't know what happened to him for the last few years. I know he had his injury problems, but I thought he looked quality. And another one that I see was Trent. He's got, I think it's 50 assists in just over 200 appearances in the Premier League, which is just, for a fullback, is incredible. So
you can put that up against 90% of the players in the Premier League, and he's still the top. Yeah. And I'm talking about your Hazards, your Gareth Bales. In terms of assists, like, Trent's right up there. It's ridiculous.
I think he's got more. I see it earlier on Twitter, so I think he's got more now than Hazard, and he's got more than Ozil. I think Ozil might have played just less, but that's incredible numbers from a fullback, and especially at his age. But I think Liverpool have got gears to jump. So that again, I said it about Tottenham. They could be ones. I think Liverpool. I tipped them this season to give Man City a run for their money. So I'm hoping they at least do that.
The big story about Liverpool's obviously the Saudi transfer window that shuts tomorrow, on whether or not Mo Salah, whether there's bid is actually happening or not. There's a lot of talk that the bid's already been made in Liverpool, or shall we say, weighing it up. But there's also a lot of talk to say that actually the bid's not even going to happen. It's actually just a bit of a posturing up from a media circus that the Saudis want to show that they try and mean business without actually doing it. A quick statement from the two of you guys. What do you think Salah goes? Mason, I'll come to you first. Do you think he goes or do you think he stays?
See, on deadline day, I woke up and I see it and I said, he's gone. That's done. The longer it's gone since then, I think he stays. But I do think this will actually. I think this will be his last season.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think every Liverpool fan will tell you that now. It's his last season. So we've kind of made peace with it, shall we say? It's whether or not we let it happen now or.
But money talks, Jamie, didn't it? You know, if the reports are true, if they're going to come in with anything 200, 210, 200, how can
219 million for a 31-year-old? Apparently it's 175 up front with add-ons, achievable add-ons.
That writes Liverpool's financial fair play for the next few years. Sorted. It's sorted.
That spends like 30 million a season, but we don't need to worry about financial fair play. But I know what you mean. Yeah, I know what you mean.
There you go. with that kind of track, I do. It's a tough one. I think he will stay. If they do come with anything like that money, Liverpool will be mad. As good as quality is, because he is one of the best in the world. Let's not beat it around the bush. But money talks.
Yeah, Johnny, what about yourself? What do you think?
You think with that financial fair play being so good, you'd actually sign some quality defenders, eh? Anyway.
That's next window. We just did a midfield rebuild. We'll do the defence rebuild next time.
The Salah thing, I think it comes down to two things, mate. One, obviously the bid has to be right. Okay. And two, Salah has to want it now. The problem for me, if I'm looking for a Liverpool fan perspective, is money really isn't an object to them. If they really want him tomorrow, they have the money to do it. I think it comes down to what the player wants. Because if they come into Liverpool and say, look, there's 220 million, whatever we add-ons for 31-year-old, couple of years left, I think you'd be stupid not to entertain that.
Yeah.
Right. They've got the cover. They've got ample cover. Yeah, it's a dent, but they do have the cover. So it comes down to him. What does he want? Does he want to jump now, or does he want to jump, at the back end of the season? I think either way, you're right, he goes. Do I think it will happen? Honestly, mate, I don't know. I would say unlikely at this minute, but I would not be shocked if I woke up to it saying, look, it's on, because they're bidding an obscene amount of money and he wants that move.
Yeah. I think the two big key factors for me is, one, if you were going to say at any point to Klopp, you're going to lose Salah, you're going to say now's the right time to do it. And what I mean by that is, as you said, Johnny, the cover. We've got abundance in strikers in terms of Diego Jota, Gakpo, Darwin Núñez, Luis Diaz. We've got the young lad coming through, Ben Doak. You've got Szoboszlai that can add as another striker. If there's ever going to be a time where cover's not an issue, now's that time to do it. I think I put something in the WhatsApp group earlier about his numbers. His numbers are ridiculous. Like he for the time he's been at Liverpool, he outstrips the numbers that Harry Kane's put together. He outstrips some of the numbers that any of the top players in the Premier League have actually done. So you're not going to replace Mo Salah. People talk about who you're going to bring in. Liverpool will not bring in another striker if Mo Salah was to go. I think if you go back to when we sold Coutinho, we didn't bring in another midfielder. We got 130 million for Coutinho, but what we did is we went out and we brought Alisson and Van Dijk, which strengthened other areas of the pitch. I think something similar, if we were to accept the money was to have, would be the route we were going down. The one thing that worries me, and I say worries me, is that we're not hearing nothing from Salah or his manager. I think on the 1st of August, his manager when the first snippets come out about potential interest, his manager put a tweet that said, "We're not going anywhere. We're happy where we are." It's kind of moved on and developed so much more now, but there's nothing coming out that tells you that there's potential that it's going to happen. So, as you guys, I wouldn't be surprised if I woke up tomorrow and there was a bid on the table.
I wouldn't read too much into that, mate, because at the end of the day, they know whatever they say, people are going to make up their own mind and come to their own conclusions about that statement anyway. You can put out a statement that says black and people will come back and say, I read that as white. You know, it just it's a waste of time. So it's probably sensible not to say anything. But yeah, I would agree.
I was listening to an interview with they did an interview on one of the podcasts to listen to, and it was to a Saudi journalist, and he talks about why Al Ittihad are making this move now, but that would take a whole another half-hour podcast somewhere else in terms of the dynamics that's happening. They are panicking. All I'll say is they're panicking if they don't get him, because obviously this is all about their bid next season to go into the Club World Championships. If they don't win the league this season, the other team that wins the league gets a bigger payout than what they had. Therefore, Mo Salah's got more options. That is why Al Ittihad are making these moves now, shall we say? So I'm 70-30 that he stays, and I'm super happy at that. And I don't think there'll be a Liverpool fan that would tell you different. But we're accepting that he's going to go at some point at the end of the season. But at the risk of keeping it as a Liverpool podcast, we do have one contentious into the roundup, which was the Sunday evening game, which was Mason Arsenal versus Man United. I'm saying contentious because there was a lot of incidents throughout the game that swung it one way to the other. What was your thoughts on the overall game? Were you impressed? Were you expected what turned out, or was it not a surprise with the result?
So this, I'll be honest, missed this one, and by the sounds of it, it seemed like an absolute cracker. So I went back today and watched the extended highlights, and looking at it, I think Arsenal looked the better side. Man United quite easily could have won it though, and we're talking, the offside. He's clearly offside, but it's very close for saying Man United snatch and grab. What I will say on Arsenal is, I think they've looked good at times, but still vulnerable. I still think I still don't think.
If you go back to this time last season,
yeah,
they were convincingly winning, weren't they? There's just not something that I'm not seeing that the same. Even though they're winning, I'm with you. There's something different about them this year that's not quite the same.
Listen, I know he scored the second goal, and it's the match-winning goal, and in the end in Declan Rice. But I still watch him, and I still want so much more from that. For the money they've spent, he's very neat and he's very tidy, and he wins the ball back. But I'm still not convinced by him. I still stand by that. But listen, I still think they're probably another team. If you look at it, 10 points from the 4 games, they'll probably look at it and say, right, I still think they've probably got levels to go. But as for Man United, I've been really disappointed. I think they've fought really poorly. I'm not buying the new goalkeeper either, by the way. I know a lot of people are. I'm not.
I said that at the beginning. I said I wasn't convinced by him at all. He's so. I seen. I think I put it in the chat today. That was there was a graphic put in, and it was Onana had played something like 47 passes out from his box, which is the most any goalkeeper's ever done. Which is great when they're highlighting these things, but they lost the game 3-1. What was the point in that? What was it they brought him in for? Are they any better since De Gea's not there? Do you know what I mean? It's like I think Dalot's still sliding to try and get that tackle at the end, didn't he? He was so far away from that. Johnny, was it the story of, as Mason put it, Mr. Nice, Neat and Tidy Declan Rice, or was it Man United bringing on 2 36-year-old defenders to try and help it see out the game? Like, I'm kind of torn between the two, if that makes sense.
Harry Maguire.
And Johnny Evans.
Yeah. I think, listen, I think Arsenal, when they get ticking, they're one of the smoothest teams to watch. They have really, really good players going forward. They play definitely up there amongst the best football. They move the ball well. They're really, really hard to tie down. So when you have that kind of pace and that kind of energy, and then you have 2 guys who have never kicked a ball, might have done a bit of pre-season, but they haven't played much football, chuck them into the fire and expect good things to happen. It just doesn't work like that. I thought Man United were off it. I didn't think that Man United deserved to get anything for that game. Ten Hag done nothing but whine after the game about all these decisions that should have 100% went his way. utter bollocks. They shouldn't have went his way. They were just...
See, on those decisions, I was going to ask you, the Hoyland penalty is probably the most contentious of opinions in terms of what I mean is that the ref could have made a decision either way on that. Would you have seen that as a penalty, or?
I mean, I would say the same. I would say the same, that these ones are, you could say, are contentious. You could argue for either side, but you can see why it was given or wasn't given. That was the kind of decisions we're talking about. The way he was talking was they were 100% black and white. They were totally different. They weren't.
And like he'd been elbowed in the face or something, isn't it? Like he would bloody nose or something. You're like, really?
They never really got going, and they got punished. I mean, yeah, it was 2 quick-fire goals that pretty much came from, I wouldn't say, I mean, it was an even-ish contest, to be fair, but after the early goals, the game kind of was a wee bit stagnant, and the goals came late on. But as we've discussed, there was a lot of changes at the back for Man United. I think they'd made maybe 4 or 5 subs at that point as well. So, yeah, I mean, Man United just haven't got going. I wouldn't put it all on the boy Onana. I think he's... If I'm a goalkeeper and I'm trying to settle into a team and you stick Evans and Harry Maguire in front of me, I'd be shite myself as well, to be fair to him. So, yeah, I mean, he has looked a bit shaky at times, I would agree with that. But, I mean, he's only played a few games. So, yeah, I think... I say that in game week 1, mate, that Man United look incredibly underwhelming, and I don't think that's changed at all.
Mason, a question on the Man United. So obviously there was a lot of talk when they brought Mason Mount in, and obviously I know you know watching him through Chelsea days of what he brings to the team. He's actually not had a scoring return at the moment in Man United, and I know he's now injured. But in the last 2 games, they brought the boy Eriksen back in, who's got a goal and an assist. I never expected there to be that kind of a difference between the 2 players. And what I mean is, like, Eriksen gets a lot forward, a lot more. He gets involved a lot more than what Mason does. And I know Mason does a lot more defensive duties, shall we say. But they can't afford Mason Mount to be on the bench when he comes back from fitness, can they?
No, but I'm not Mason Mount's biggest fan. Never have been. I think he when he first come through, he's shown glimpses. I think he had a really good season. Chelsea won the league. I think Tuchel got something out of him, but I've not seen that player since. He's been in and out. I'm not surprised with that, to be honest, Jamie. Eriksen has been a top player for a long time, and the pass for the goal at the weekend is really underrated.
He's very underrated there, isn't he? He's very underrated. If you look at even last season, the numbers that he was putting in, you're like, mate, they didn't pay any money for him. You know, a free signing, like. They were crucifying that transfer when it happened, and saying that they shouldn't be shopping in the free market like that. But he's been brilliant.
I didn't understand that they was how upset they were with that signing at the time. I think when you look at Ten Hag signing, that's been one of the best ones. I think if I was a Man United fan, I'd be questioning the money they spent on someone like Mason Mount instead of looking at the free transfer in Christian Eriksen. But yeah, the money they've spent. I just look at their transfers this summer, and I'm just not impressed at all. I think if I look at other teams and the business they've done, I've thought, how have Man United not gone in there? The only one that I do really like from Man United is Amrabat. I think he's a top player. I really, really do. I think that to get him done was important because that midfield it needed.
So the question is, the way Man United play, and this kind of compounds it now. Where does Amrabat go in? Does he go in space of Casemiro? Does he go in space of Bruno? Does he go in space of Eriksen?
I think you've got to play the both, Jamie. I think you've got to play Amrabat and Casemiro. We were talking about the Man United centre-halves and how poor they are.
Should you then put Eriksen back on the bench then?
I probably am. For Amrabat, I probably am. And then I'm bringing in... I suppose it's horses for courses, isn't it? But maybe a game at Old Trafford when you're playing against the bottom teams, you don't need Amrabat and Casemiro, especially Casemiro's age as well. You've got to manage his game time. Champions League as well. But yeah, I do think that their best 11, I think I'll probably go both of them,
Yeah. And Johnny, just to obviously touch back on Arsenal, I know you're a big fan of Odegaard, aren't you? And I mean, he didn't have a terrible game, did he? He played really good.
No, he's a quality player, mate. Has been consistently for a while now. It was quite good to see him settle eventually. You know, we've spoken about it before. He was so highly touted for such a long time. But something I had said before as well, that he seemed to make those huge moves, probably maybe a year or two ahead of when he should have done it. That's probably just bad advice, and I suppose your head getting turned by these big clubs coming into you.
16 when he joined Real Madrid, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think it was just far too much too soon. Whereas at Arsenal, he seems to have had, I wouldn't say found his level, because it is a very high level, but it seems to just be working for him now. And he's just a quality player, mate. Everything about him is smooth, graceful, works hard, and what a two-footed player. A ping of a shot he has him on as well. So, yeah, I really, really like him, mate. I highly, highly rate him.
Good. Well, that pretty much brings us to the end of the games, guys. We've obviously got, as I said, the next round's not until the 16th. But if I was to run through some of the fixtures, we've got the early kickoff at 12:30, Wolves against Liverpool. 3 o'clock kickoffs, you've got Villa Palace, Fulham Luton, Man United Brighton, which seems criminal for a 3 o'clock kickoff considering the 3 o'clock blackout on the TV. So I can see a lot of IPTVs kicking in around about that day. You've got Spurs and Sheffield United. You've got West Ham and City, and then the evening game, which is Newcastle Brentford, which could be a bit of a barnstormer. On the Sunday, you've got Bournemouth Chelsea, Everton Arsenal, and Forest and Burnley on the Monday night. Mason, which games are you going to be standing out for in that weekend? Sorry.
So the one that you picked there that's not on the TV.
Man U Brighton.
That just because I've just said there at the start of the show that I can see Brighton going to get a result, and I really can. Yeah. Watching Brighton at the weekend as well, and as you said about Man United, I think if I do a coup on that weekend, I'm going to be going with a Brighton
to score. Very good. And Johnny, what about yourself, mate?
Fixtures are a wee bit not hugely appealing, to be honest with you, mate, on paper.
You mean you're not looking forward to Bournemouth and Chelsea?
I knew you were going to say that. You're so transparent.
Like the front page of the newspaper, mate.
Yeah. I should have just jumped on that and never set you up. No, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, I'll still watch every bit of football I can get down my throat when we get past this international break. But yeah, there's not a huge amount of jumping out of me. Maybe see how Burnley got on, see if they improve against Forest. So it should be a pretty tight game. I agree with you that the TV blackout games continue to make no sense. Villa Palace, that has potential as well. So yeah, that would probably be the two picks I would go with, the two that aren't on TV.
Good. So if you guys obviously want to look out for some of the fixtures, I think there's a fair chunk. I'm personally cheering on Arsenal against Everton on the Sunday at 4 o'clock, just to compound them a little bit further. I'll be definitely taking them. And the last segment then, so we'll take 2 minutes just to kind of round up where we were in our beloved fantasy teams. So Mason, so you've obviously been missing for a couple of weeks. How's your fantasy team been getting on?
Mate, I'm doing well. I'll be honest, I didn't touch it whilst I was away on honeymoon. I didn't really look at it, but I was quite lucky with how I set up. So 84 points this week. So my midfield is doing its thing for me at the minute. So
how many hat trickers did you have? Just the one, or
just the one? Just Haaland. Just Haaland, but obviously it's not loading at the moment. But my midfield was the one that's got, as I said, Mbeumo, Saka didn't score, but it's not loading at the minute. But I think apart from Saka, all my midfielders scored. So I'm top of quite a few leagues. So I'm quite happy with how I started there.
And Johnny, what about yourself?
A better week this week, mate. Recovered a bit. Finished on 77, which wasn't terrible. The one transfer I made was Maddison. Brought Maddison in, who turned up. I was tossing up between Maddison and Bowen. Ended up going with Maddison. I'm glad I never touched Sterling. Did consider it, but I'd say to you prior, I thought there was too much weight being put on that game against Luton, so I went against it. I think the only pisser was I couldn't decide whether to start Onana or Turner. I ended up going with Onana, and we know how that one worked. He got the hole in the donut.
Turner at Chelsea with his bonus points.
Yeah, I know. Sod bloody long. So that was the only thing I can fault, and try and get through the international break and see what we come back with injury wise.
Good man. I finished with 77 points, so a bit of between the 2 years. Like yourselves, obviously, I've got Haaland and Bueno, Foden, Maddison, all with returns, but I was a toss-up between Jackson and Watkins to start for me, and both of them pretty much did nothing. So it was kind of like I spent a full day sweating over absolutely nothing. So now, as we said, we've now got the international break, which is going to do nothing but give me anxiety for 2 weeks about what I do. But going by the league, a big shout out to the new leader. We've got a new leader who got a whopping 113 points. A player called Amico Elvis. He had Haaland and played his bench boost, but on his bench he had Son, Mitchell, Udogie, and Areola. So walked away with another 31 points off his bench, which is nothing to sweat at. So 113 points, and he jumped straight to the top of the leaderboard. So well done to you. The highest in the world was a person who played his triple captain, ended up with 148 points, but he had Son, Ferguson, Alvarez, and Haaland. Big point earners that week. So
Don't talk about people like that.
I know it's absolutely. I think they're just bots. That they're obviously
bottom of every league at the end. He gets no kudos.
Knowing Colin probably started with a Langer up front and has paid off in the points. So fingers crossed. We got a few Hail Marys like that. But as I said, thanks very much for tuning in and listening in. It's always good to kind of round up the week's chat. Mason, it's been good to have you back, mate. Welcome back.
Yeah, good to be back, mate. And as I said at the start, nice to talk about other football. But I'll be honest, been a little bit off it altogether. So it's been nice to get back in the swing, and I'm looking forward to once it gets back around to being back more regularly.
Good man. And Johnny, as ever, mate, always appreciate the attendance.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, guys. It's always a pleasure. Probably sound a bit rough tonight, not feeling the best, but
this is your good voice. What are you talking about?
I sound husky, don't
I? I'm sure there's some listener out there that's appreciative of Right, guys. As I said, there's no Premier League roundup next week because we have the internationals. So we shall see you after the weekend of the 16th. If you've got any thoughts on some of the stuff that we talked about, or you want to ask any questions, drop it into the comments. You see a lot on YouTube, and we come back to you. But thanks very much, guys. Catch you later.